Julie, I can.
Perfect, thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Julie Mergel, and I will be co-facilitating this session today. So hopefully you know that today is our kickoff for our task force for Chapter 55 accreditation, which we're going to refer to as a school quality task force. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to do some introductions and just really take some time today to kind of lay out what we're going to be doing together for the next few months. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Tristan for a second to just talk to you for a few minutes about the mechanics of the Zoom, and then we'll go ahead and begin. Tristan, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm sure everyone is fairly familiar with Zoom, but we are in the webinar version, so I will just do some explaining. We do have an attendees option and the panelist option. I will be able to move you back and forth as needed. You can remember to raise your hand at the bottom of the screen if you have a comment you would like to make, and we will make sure to call on you and at least the best we can in the order that it comes up. And you also have the option to put chats in as well. You can chat individually or you can chat to the whole group and all of the attendees. We want to make sure that you have your full name and that it's spelled correctly, just so that we're able to see who you are. And yeah, I think you can go to the next slide, Julie. And I will be recording all of these meetings so you can review them later. And hopefully we won't have any technical issues, but if that does happen, we'll have you repeat what you said.
Perfect. Thank you, Tristan, so much for just going over some of those details about the Zoom. And you guys, please know that if you have any questions or technical difficulties at any time during our session, please just go ahead and chat Tristan and she'll be able to assist you with that. So I want to just start off with introductions today from the OPI who will be joining us. So we have our superintendent of Elsie Arnson, who will be doing a welcoming here in a minute. We've got our deputy superintendent, Cheryl Allen, joining us. I am the chief operating officer here at the OPI, which is a new position for me, day 3. And so I oversee all of the programs here. Also joining us today are Eric. Eric, would you like to say hello and share with folks who you are?
Sure, yes. Hi, everyone. Nice to see and meet you all virtually. My name is Eric Stiefvater. I'm with the Region 17 Comp Center based at Education Northwest in Portland, Oregon. I'm with a federally funded technical assistance program that partners with state education agencies across the U.S. to support the use of evidence-based practices in education. So I'm happy to be here to be an extra pair of hands for Julie and Tristan, and also periodically, as helpful, share some resources that we collect in terms of research and some expertise around surveys and focus groups and research methods. So nice to be here and look forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Eric. And Tristan, how about a formal introduction from you?
Sure. Hi, guys. I am Tristan Loveridge. My email says Belknap. It's my maiden name, and things are slowly getting changed, so don't be confused by that. I am a project manager and the deputy superintendent's assistant, and I'm here for any kind of needs you might have regarding to the chapter.
Thank you, Tristan. So I would like to now turn it over to our state superintendent for her to just formally welcome you. Elsie?
Thank you, Dr. Merkel, or Julie, first name basis here. Everyone, thank you. I just am so excited about the work that we get to do. These rules that we are unwinding and looking to see who and what and how they affect education in all of our communities across our state. At this point, these rules are going to be live for another 10 years. Think about where we were 10 years ago, and even understanding what a pandemic might have created havoc for our personal families, for our school system, for our communities, for our nation and our globe. So in 10 years, we don't know what's going to happen. But right now we know where we are, and we need to reflect on where we are right now. We need to also look to see in the research that you're going to be working through on why they are at this point. But I want you to have a future view. These are my grandchildren that are being affected. These are our children that aren't even walking through our school doors at this time. Not only our children that are going to be affected, these are our teachers, our paraprofessionals. These are our counselors. These are all of these great school leaders, principals, superintendents, and trustees that are all going to be affected by the good work that we do today and into the future. And I do know that this process is going to be taking some time. You may have some fatigue throughout this whole process, but what I'm asking that you all work together and that you connect either with the good folks here at the OPI through Eric and his leadership with Ed Northwest, or you connect with one another. Reflect as much as you possibly can with who you are today, but also think, where do you want this to be in 10 years? And that process of moving forward. I'm very proud of the great work that's going to happen. And the other thing I want to note is that this isn't about Chapter 55. That's a number that not many people know about. This is about school quality. This is about Montana school quality. This is not a number. And if we can keep calling it Montana school quality, that's what you're tasked with. What does Montana school quality in education look like? So I'm blessed to be part of this, as you all are. Please reach to us or anyone on this team to make sure that we can answer questions, that we can have innovation, that we can be realistic. One of the things I also, and I just want to end with this, is part of this whole process is the believability of what government does. And yes, you are an arm of government in this task force, as public schools are. So let's put the believability to work. Let's put your relationships to work. And it's not just working for the state in government. You're working for the future of Montana and our children. So Dr. Mergel, thank you for your good work that you're going to be doing. And with all of you, please stay healthy and well through the process.
Thank you, Superintendent. We appreciate your welcome, and we appreciate you giving us that thinking about that these rules that are currently in place were drafted in 2013, and what has really gone on in the last 10 years, and knowing that we need to have a future look of thinking about these rules in 2033. So thank you for that reflection and foresight, both of those pieces. So Deputy Allen, I know you are joining us today via phone, and I also wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the team.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is a pleasure to be with you. I am traveling back from Havre today, where I had the opportunity to meet with superintendents and directors and listen again to the message that as we all work together for the outcomes that best serve the future of Montana, our children will be that much better off. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being on this task force, and thank you for your commitment to always looking for the best options for our kids.
Thank you, Deputy Allen. Drive safe. So you guys, today what we really hope to accomplish in our session is to really kind of launch our school quality task force, to share with you the purpose of this task force, the process, the timeline, and the deliverables. And to take a moment to just kind of initiate a preliminary discussion and brainstorming on Chapter 55 accreditation. What's its purpose? What's it really about? And then I want to take some time to really confirm next steps and be sure that you're set with some offline work prior to our January in-person session, which is scheduled here in Helena for January 25th and 26th. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the end of our session today. So what we will be doing now that we've done a welcome from our superintendent and introductions, we're going to take some time to have you all introduce who you are to the team. We'll go through the purpose of the task force, the proposed work process, the key deliverables, a communications plan. We'll take some time to just kind of talk about like operating logistics. Where do I find, where's the stuff being stored? How do I know? And Tristan's going to kind of take us through the documents that she's created to keep our project moving forward and to be really transparent in communicating that out on our website and our Google site that's been created just for us. And then we'll dig into that introductory discussion that I talked about and be sure that we close out with next steps. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and give you guys an opportunity to introduce who you are. If you could please share with us your name, your role, and an answer to this question. What is the best snow removal method? All right, and I'm going to turn it over to start with Heather.
Which Heather? I guess I can start. Yeah, there's two
Yep,
Heathers.
go ahead, Heather.
I am the voice of Heather Jarrett today because the poor girl is sick and doesn't have a voice. So Heather Jarrett is the superintendent of Reed Point Schools, and she says the best snow removal method is the good wind of Chinook.
So good afternoon, everybody. I am Heather Hoyer. I'm the assistant superintendent of secondary schools here in Great Falls. And so I work specifically with grades 7 through 12 and then our post high school partners who help us with our students who are graduating and exploring life beyond high school. And I would agree with the other Heather. It's exactly what I was going to say. Living in Great Falls, if you don't love the wind, you're in a lot of trouble. So that best snow removal would definitely be the Chinook wind.
Thank you, Heather and Heather. How about over to Dan?
I am Dan Lee. I'm the Associate Dean in College of Education at the University of Montana. Best snow removal method? Well, because I live in Missoula, it doesn't, until recently, it doesn't always snow all that much. So simply broom usually works fairly well for us. So that's my method.
Thank you, Dan. Over to Dawn.
Hi, I'm Don Chrisman. I'm the Assistant Superintendent at Lockwood Schools. I do federal program management, special education. I'm the grant procurement officer and do the e-grant system as well. And for me, an electric snow shovel is the best method for snow removal.
Thank you, Dawn. Janelle?
Welcome. I'm Janelle Beers. I'm the new director of the Montana Small Schools Alliance. This is my 6th day on the job, so very new, but not new to education. I've been in education for over 40 years, so that's not new. I would say the best snow removal method for us is a neighbor with a snowplow who's willing to do it.
Thank you, Janelle, and welcome and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
Billy, how about over to you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Billy Taylor. I'm the K-12 principal and superintendent at Harrison School District. And I would say that hitching up the tractor, getting it ready to go is the best snow removal here.
Ah, all right. Over to John.
Hi, I'm John Conan. I'm the superintendent at Corvallis Schools. Unfortunately, I'm in Great Falls in the hospital with my dad today, so I didn't do my hair, so I apologize for that piece of it. But I think the best snow removal I've seen that went viral this last year was a guy out in his driveway using a flamethrower. So I think I would like to use that.
That ought to be a sight to see, John. I have to say, I haven't heard of that method. Sending thoughts to you and your dad over there in Great Falls. David. David, can you hear us? How about we go to Russ and we'll come back to David.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Russ McDaniel, principal at Ulm Schools. And I'm glad to be here. And I think probably the best snow removal system I have is my son with a shovel.
Very good. Thank you, Russ. Let's try David one more time.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
We sure can.
Okay, this is David Pafford. Sorry about the technical problems. I am the Knoxon School District 10 School Board Chairman here in Sanders County. And the best snow removal method I've found so far this year is to make sure my diesel and plow works and to keep the grandkids on quick dial.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Did I get everybody? Anybody that I might have missed?
Hey, Julie, we have a text from McCall Flynn at the Board of Public Ed. I think she's in the participant list, so just want to acknowledge that she's listening in to this orientation.
Great. We are glad to have you here, McCall. Welcome, and we look forward to having your partnership in this great work that we'll be doing for the Board of Public Ed. All right, so I'm going to move over to the purpose of this task force. So big question, why have we been pulled together? What is the overall purpose? So the purpose of this group is to make recommendations for ARM Chapter 55 revisions to the Superintendent of Public Instruction and the Negotiated Rulemaking Committee. And so this task force is a really important part for updating that chapter 55, as the superintendent had indicated, on a 10-year revision cycle. And so we, as the task force, are charged with making initial recommendations for ARM Chapter 55 to the Superintendent of Public Instruction and the Negotiated Rule Committee, which is a separate working group. And the Negotiated Rulemaking Committee will review and revise this task force recommendations and also prepare an economic impact statement in consultation with our superintendent. So I think the part that's really important to understand about the standards of accreditation is that they are outlined in Montana Code annotated. And the standards of accreditation for all schools must be adopted by the Board of Public Ed upon the recommendations of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. So I just kind of want to take a moment there and just kind of really share again, we are going to be the School Quality Task Force. We're going to come up with recommendations that will go on to another committee called the Negotiated Rule Committee. And so our recommendations will be moving forward to that group and to the superintendent, with those recommendations ultimately with our superintendent, who will make those to the Board of Public Ed. So that is our purpose. In terms of key deliverables, this means we're going to have a couple of critical documents or outputs that this task force must create to meet that charge that I just outlined. So there's really two key deliverables that we have. The first one is to develop a field survey document to be deployed in February that we can send out to the larger stakeholder groups about the particular rules around school quality. The second piece is to write what we call a concept memorandum. And what a concept memorandum is, it's a document that contains current rule and proposed red line rule with those conceptual changes and the rationale for what that will be. And so we will be targeting to have that completed by March 11th so that we can pass that along to the superintendent and to the negotiated rule committee. And so those are the two pieces that I think are really key deliverables and outcomes that we will be working towards as a group. So in terms of that, how will we actually go about that? What's our process? How will we engage in these activities to really address the pieces and those deliverables and to meet this charge? We're going to both meet in person, hopefully, ideally, and online to develop that concept memorandum or those initial revisions for Chapter 55 for consideration for the negotiated rule committee and our superintendent. Between meetings, the task force members will be doing some reading, reviewing some research, gathering input, and working on items for our concept memorandum related to focus areas. So when we meet together in January, we're going to be at times meeting in whole group, and at times we're going to be meeting in small group and focus areas. And those focus areas are going to be areas that are related to the chapter. For example, there's a chapter or subchapter around leadership. There's one around the whole process, general provisions to what it means and the purpose behind accrediting schools. There's a piece around educational opportunity. There's a piece around like academic opportunity. So when we're working, we're going to get formed into some groups so that we can really kind of share the work. And so there'll be times that we're working in both those focus groups, and there's times that we're going to be working in whole group. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you, that for the most part, a lot of the work's going to be done when we're together, but there may be times where you've got to come to a meeting tasked with maybe sharing some of the things that you've been working on offline related to a particular focus. So in terms of timeline, so this timeline was approved by the Board of Public Ed. And so we've been engaging in research around school quality, accountability systems, accrediting systems since November of 2020 for over a year now. We are going to continue doing that work through April of this upcoming, we have been doing that work through April of this year. And so I forget, we're already in 22, you guys, I haven't turned that calendar page yet. So from November of 2021 to April 2022, we're going to, as a task force, be working. And so you can see that's where we're at, is kind of in that yellow zone of really working together as a task force for the revisions to this arm. And then the negotiated rulemaking committee will be doing their work between January and June of 2022. Then in July, the proposed amendments in the economic statement will be going to the July of 2022 on the calendar. That's a piece that negotiated rule committee will be tasked with and will be a key deliverable for them that will be going to the board in July. And then because it has that educational impact component, we have to be working with the Education Interim Committee, our legislators. So we'll be getting that economic impact statement to them by August, a month in advance of their September quarterly meeting for September of 2022. And then from there begins the actual rulemaking process from the board in September of 2022 with the overall goal of implementing these rules starting in July of 2023. So that's kind of the big picture, you guys, on the timeline. And I wanted to give you a moment to kind of see, like, between the task force and the negotiated rules, how those two timeframes are kind of overlapping a little bit. You'll see there, we're starting, we'll go through April, and then they're starting, and we'll be going through June. So taking a look at that, these are the dates that we shared with you. And we'll be setting, you guys, when we meet in January the 25th, we'll be determining what day of the week and what time of day is going to be best for this group to be conducting those 2-hour Zooms. We may even send kind of like a doodle poll from Tristan even before that January 25th, just to kind of, if you will, get an idea of where the poll the group, so that we can firm that up then on January 25th, so we can get those dates on the calendar. So it'll just be 1 2-hour meeting during that time. So we're going to start off today, we're kicking off, but then January, we're going to do a lot of big work in that first in-person session. So we'll do, some time on the first day from 10 to 5. And then pick it back up in the next day, 26 from 8 to 2. Then we'll move into 2-hour Zoom meetings for 2 weeks. And then we'll come back to another big in-person meeting, March 8th and March 9th. And if you remember, that was kind of a key date there, that we'll be finished at the end of that meeting and coming back out of there, hopefully with that concept memorandum ready to go, so that it can be sent to the negotiated rule committee for their March 17th, 18th in-person session that they'll be holding. And then what we'll be doing in March and April is kind of going back and providing additional feedback or any questions that might be coming out of the negotiated rule back to us to say, can you give us a little bit more thinking here, and provide them a little bit more feedback as they're moving forward. So then you'll see that their first negotiated rulemaking orientation committee meeting will be in February. So we're going to be working to get our work together, get that concept memorandum off to them for their March 17th meeting. And then we will commence in April. We will be looking at getting that survey together and kind of having it pretty firmed up once we walk away from that January 26th meeting, so that we can get that out in February and then start to kind of process what we hear from the field around some pieces, so that in February we could take some time to kind of debrief that and have that information ready for us and synthesized before we head into our in-person meeting in March. So I'm going to pause there for a moment, because I've said a lot around the deliverables, the purpose of this group, kind of the process and the timeline. And then we're going to actually talk a little bit about some of the logistics and the operations. But I just want to pause for a minute to give the group a chance to ask any questions that they might have about any of the information that's been shared so far. All righty. I'm going to take that as we'll keep moving, but don't hesitate to come back and ask some questions as we go a little bit deeper here. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Tristan, who's going to talk to us a little bit about how we stay in touch, kind of how we document our work, how we document our dialogue, how we keep track of all of the information as we move forward. So Tristan has created for us a website, a tab on our website, excuse me, so that you can be able to locate all of this information on our OPI website, and also share with other stakeholder groups, kind of this is where they can go for information about what is happening in our task force. And then she's going to share with you this Google site That is a location where there's the meeting minutes and the recordings from our minutes and our agendas, but also some of the materials like today's presentation and today's, a slideshow, and then talking about some of the deliverables. So Tristan, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute. I'm going to stop sharing so that you can kind of do a walkthrough, if you will, and show us all of the great tools that you've put together.
Thanks, Julie. Okay. So the first is the OPI website. When you go to opi.mt.gov, this is the very home screen, and you will see up here on the right-hand side, there is task force information. I will show you this first. For chapter 57 and 58, we used a setup like this, where you could find their minutes, the agendas, the recordings, and their summaries. And this will be very much like what you see when you come to your page that is still being developed. So it's on its way, but you will be able to find the meeting links and agendas here. And that is for the public's use, and they can, come here and find that easily. And then we're going to jump over to our Google site, and I will send this link to everyone in the chat. And this is for all of our task force and negotiated rulemaking committees use. This will include announcements. It'll include the next upcoming meeting times. It'll have our homework that'll be described at the end of this meeting. I'll put that up. We've got a link for Chapter 55's ARM in the Secretary of State's website. And then I have developed a spreadsheet of all of the ARM, and you can go through all of the subchapters. We'll keep some notes, discussion, and what votes happen and what the vote is when those do happen. We've got a tab up here with all of our task force and negotiated rulemaking information, where you're from and what your role is. I think I did an okay job. And if anything is wrong, please let me know and I'll fix it. We have a tab with a schedule. I've got a Google Calendar set up for each the task force and the negotiated rulemaking committee. And as you can see, you can see your next upcoming meeting, and it's coming up real quick. It'll be here before we know it. And then I've got a resources page where you'll be able to see, again, that our master sheet that I've created. And then as we go along, I'll dump all of the articles and things that we give to you guys in here. That way you can have like a one-stop shop and find everything. Next is your task force tab. You can come into this main page, or you can go to the orient or drop down here. You've got an orientation tab. And this is where I'm going to drop, all of the specific meeting materials. So right now we've got our Zoom meeting link here for in case you lose the calendar invite. I've got the agenda up and the presentation already. So if you want to follow along, you can always pull that up if it's too small on your screen. And as we continue going on, I've got the January one up already, just as an example of what it'll look like as we go. But this will get longer and longer as you go on. I think that is it. Does anyone have any questions?
Perfect. Thank you, Tristan, so much for that work so that we can have it all organized in such a wonderful fashion and have it all in one location. So I really appreciate all that you've done in preparation for that. So thank you again. So I'm going to go ahead and pull us back up on to our PowerPoint where we left off. Just doing a quick check. Can you guys see that okay? Okay, perfect. I saw some head nodding. So we'll go ahead then. And I'm going to turn this over to Eric. Eric, to lead a conversation that we're going to have, just to kind of brainstorm for a moment. Eric, over to you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Julie and Tristan. And I think we're actually going to give you all a chance to talk with each other and start sharing some of your good thinking and your perspective on an important issue in breakouts. I think we'll probably just have a couple of small breakouts randomly assigned, just so
Hey,
that
Eric, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yep.
We might have to rethink how we do that because
okay.
in webinars, I'm not able to do breakout rooms.
Okay, no problem. So yes, thankfully we're kind of a smallish group. This would not work quite as well if we had a large number of people. So we can do this right here. So let's, we have a prompt on the screen. So go ahead and take a minute to reflect on this question, and then we'll just kind of open up the floor. This is something that the superintendent addressed in her remarks about school quality. We all have different ideas on what that might look like. We'll be grappling with some weighty and important issues related to quality schools and accreditation. So just to kind of warm us up and get us thinking about this topic, take a minute and think about how you would respond to this question, and then we'll open the floor.
Eric, this is David in Knoxon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well,
You're our first volunteer.
Well, okay, gee, thanks. But I've been struggling with the audio here on my computer. Well, I have a question before I answer this question. I consider a quality school in Montana in these dates and times to be a moving target, and I'm skittish on making any permanent commitments.
Can you say a bit more about that?
Yes. In other words, I understand historically what a quality school is, according to the historical standards and accreditation standards and targeted and things like that. But I suspect that for a number of different reasons, the pandemic being only one of them, that Montana's public schools and other public schools are gonna be, what's the word I'm looking for, revised to the point where we won't even recognize what they used to be, but we have to plan for what they look like in the future. And so when you ask me what a quality school is, my first response is, oh yeah, I know what that is. But then again, I'm thinking, whoa, hold on, because a quality school suddenly needs to have opportunities for remote learning and opportunities for IEPs for every student. And then there's personalized learning and all of these new, or not new, but relatively new influences right down to the public school level, and the brick and mortar schoolhouse just will not look the same.
Yeah, certainly a lot of settled wisdom and assumptions have been called into question over the last couple of years. So yes, this is a timely convening of all of you smart folks as a brain trust to kind of puzzle through this and see what change might be necessary, both to address current issues, but as well as to position Montana schools for continued success 10 years from now. All right. Would anyone else like to share? You could either raise your hand and we can recognize you, or you could also post a comment in the chat. You could if you wish. Just want to acknowledge we have McCall Flynn in the room with us. Hi, McCall. She's with the Board of Public Ed. So McCall, you're welcome to respond to this as well. I don't know if you want to give just maybe McCall, if you just want to give kind of a quick intro to yourself and kind of how this process fits with the collaboration between OPI and the board.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. I think you did a great job introducing me. McCall Flynn from the Board of Public Ed. I think, and then Julie did a really good job of kind of explaining how the board plays into this. These are the Board of Public Ed's administrative rules, and the board will ultimately approve an administrative rules that come to us from the superintendent. So really nice to be able to observe this process and kind of hear from each of you. Thanks for letting me join.
Great. Thanks, McCall. Okay, I see some hands up. First on my screen is John. John, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Kind of breaking it up into 4 different areas, I think, in my brain, and more framing them like questions and then indicators that show that. Like, first one is like how we learn. Second one is how we lead, how we manage resources, and then how do we communicate with our, or how do we interact with our community. And so I think when we talk about a quality school, so many different characteristics come through those 4 avenues, from professional development, engagement of students, and culture of the school. I think all those are interactive with those 4 different areas, and then coming up with indicators, I think, that really define what quality looks like. And similar to, oh boy, I forgot his first name, where'd he go? What David said at the beginning, you know, we do have moving targets. You know, 5 years ago, we wouldn't be talking so much about remote learning and digital learning as we would right now. And so there's a lot of pieces, I think, that in a quality school are being changed. So I want to echo what David said.
Great. Thank you, John. Next on my screen is Janelle. You might need to unmute yourself there, Jen.
Yep. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I think one of the things, and some of the things that John said, you know, kind of all related around school climate, and that's access, professional development, engagement, equity, respect, all those things, and they all obviously go under many indicators, but I think they all kind of come back to school climate, and that is sometimes a changing target, but it's something we all have to look at, and a lot of those things can fit under that umbrella as far as an indicator.
Great. Thank you, Janelle. Next, I see Dawn.
Yeah, I think as far as quality schools go, I think that Montana has quality schools. But with all of these changes based on COVID and funding, I think we have to take a real look at sustainability of programming and how that's going to be funded. I think that we need to look at fiscal management without funding cliffs and look at how that affects a real quality program in schools that may not have 3,000 or 4,000 students and generating quite a bit of funding. So I think that's something that really does affect our smaller schools in Montana.
Thank you, Don. Next, I see Heather Hoyer.
Thanks, Eric. And it's just going to really piggyback off of what everyone else has said. And I'm going to build off of John's 4 things. We need to have schools that have highly qualified teachers and administrators within those schools that understand where schools have been, where we are today, and where we need to go into the future. So it kind of takes that. I'm a former high school principal, and we were always talking about preparing kids for a future. They don't even know what their future is or what it could be or what's out there. Schools are kind of in the same boat as those graduates or soon to be graduates are. We have to have a curriculum that is flexible and allows for some individualization and some transformational learning. I'm huge on transformational learning and opportunities for students beyond what is considered traditional. We need to be fiscally responsible, but also responsive, because funding streams are just different today. And if you have to be able to look outside of your district. But in the end, when all that happens and the chaos is happening, we need to have schools and communities that focus on kids, because if we lose that focus, we're in trouble. So we need to remember why we're in the business that we're in.
Great. Thank you, Heather. Daniel Lee, you had your hand up, but now it's down. So
Well, only Heather Heather made a point that I wanted to, is that quality schools have, children in quality schools have access to quality instruction, and quality instructors have access to quality leadership. So it's really about, I mean, the heart of it is really about quality instruction, about having highly qualified teachers who know their content, who know how to deliver it in a variety of ways, other than just, stand deliver method. But we're learning now with COVID, the use of technology is a real important factor now. We think about providing quality instruction in this environment.
great. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, I see Billy Taylor has a hand up.
Yeah, I think that the definition of a quality school, we know that there has to be high quality academics and teachers and instructional staff, but I think it's about putting the whole child first and addressing the social emotional needs of our children first and foremost, so that they are then ready to receive the high instruction that we offer in our schools. And I also think a component of that needs to come back to sharing who defines what a high quality school is, because that needs to come down to our local areas. Rural schools have different values and different things that they hold than other schools do. And truly, where a child attends school, the school should reflect its community. And so there needs to be, I think, a shared definition and who gets to determine what a quality school is.
Thank you, Billy. And then David Pafford. You might need to unmute yourself.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Doggone it. I apologize for the problems. I tell you, one of the indicators that define a quality school, in my opinion, is, can we compete with the other options that families suddenly discovered during the pandemic? Are we competitive with the private and the homeschoolers that now discover curriculum is available at an affordable cost to their children? Why do I have to send them to a public school? And so I would suggest that one of the indicators that defines a quality school is that school is the school of choice in that area.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone that we missed? Anyone that didn't get to speak, share their thoughts on this question, who would like to share their thoughts? Just going to check the chat real quick, see if anything came in there. No? Okay, Daniel. Oh, you're muted, Daniel.
Yeah, I think a quality school uses data, uses information to improve its program and to better serve their students. So to the extent that they are able to collect data, analyze it, and use it in a way to improve itself is important.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this topic? Thank you all very much for sharing your thoughts. This will be a question we'll keep coming back to, and we'll be noodling over and examining all sorts of nuance around. And I really appreciate the perspectives that all of you shared, and you highlighted some things that we'll talk about. We'll talk about data. We'll look at some data OPI has from teams. So we'll be taking a look at that. We'll be talking about that issue of, local control and the different levers and views of what a quality school means and looks like at different levels. in the state. We'll talk about if and how recent events have necessitated changes in how schools are accredited. We'll talk about all the different factors. We'll talk about a system for if we identify the values and the principles and the levers of quality, how you would measure that. So thanks for those of you that suggested some possible indicators. We'll take a look at that. Julie, I don't know if anything else kind of stood out to you from our folks here as resonating themes and things we're going to look forward to diving into.
I heard lots of really good things. I heard things from school climate to using data for school improvement, quality educators, access to quality instruction, fiscal responsibility, a reflection of the community. So a lot of really good, I think, pieces that just kind of get us thinking and get our thoughts around what do we mean as we head into this pretty big, important topic. So thanks, Eric.
And I'll just say, Heather Jarrett posted in the chat, an indicator of value is post-secondary preparedness for students, as well as many of the previously mentioned indicators. So yes, thank you. Tristan, I saw your hand up, but maybe you were about to read Heather's comment.
Yes, I'm Heather's voice today. So
Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you all very much. Be ready to continue that conversation and take it around all sorts of corners and down all sorts of interesting places when we meet together in Helena and ongoing through the spring. So I think with that, we will just do a few closing items and next steps.
Yes, so thank you, Eric, for that introductory conversation. And I don't know if you guys saw this appear in the Google site that Tristan had shared with us, but our homework is already posted. So there are 4 things under homework this week, this meeting, if you will, to be done for January 25th, 26th. So the first most important piece is be sure you make your arrangements to come in person on January 25th. That will be hotel arrangements, whatever may need to be for you guys back at the school to be able to make that happen back in your community. So Tristan will be sending out information and communicating with you, but that's our first task, is to be sure we're set for the 25th. Tristan, did you want to share anything about that before I go to number 2?
Sure. I'm still working on finalizing a hotel block with a government rate for everyone. You can always choose, I guess, to stay somewhere else, but we're making some finalized details with that, and I'll share more details after they're finalized.
Thank you, Tristan. So what I hear you saying is be looking for an email from you probably early next week, so folks can be finalizing their plans.
Yep, that's perfect. Thanks, Julie.
Yep. The second one is to become acquainted with that Google site. I know Tristan went over it pretty quickly, but being sure that you kind of take an opportunity to look at those tabs on the very, very top of all the things that are in there, the resources, and becoming acquainted with that, so you know where to locate things, whether it's homework, the calendar, agendas, PowerPoint presentations. And then number 3 is a really important one, to take the time to really review current Chapter 55 ARM. And so it is right on your Google site. So once you get acquainted, Tristan kind of showed it there to us, but you can click on that and just really take some time to kind of review it. What does current rule have in it, and get acquainted with that, of kind of how it's organized into subchapters, if you will, as like the first portion when you see ARM is that the first few chapters have been repealed. So the first starting chapters actually of subchapters start in the 600s for this particular chapter 55. So you'll kind of notice some of those things, and then you'll kind of go through and see the different sections from like general provisions to leadership to educational opportunity. So it's a pretty lengthy chapter. And then the final homework is to take an opportunity to read an article called K-12 Accreditation's Next Move. And we've put this link and article on your Google site, but we can also, Tristan, if you don't mind just copying and pasting it into the chat, that would be great as well. If you can just kind of read that and have that read and ready to kind of debrief that as we come in as a opening activity for our January 25th meeting. So that's really all that I have for homework and next steps. Any questions for me on what we are to do and get accomplished before January 25th? Okay, please be sure that you jot down Tristan's email, or I know that you probably have received a few emails from her, but also her phone number is listed here. She's our point of contact, and get over a message to her. Please, any questions that you might have, arrangements, homework, technology, you're having some difficulty being able to join a meeting, whatever it might be. This is kind of your point of contact to us here at the OPI. So that is all that I have for you today. And I really look forward to getting arrangements out to you next week and really diving into this important work with each of you. All right, I read a snow removal method, and I don't think I'm going to try it, but it talked about putting rubbing alcohol, Dawn dish soap, in some hot boiling water, and apparently it won't freeze. But I don't think I'm going to give it a try. It'd be just my luck it would freeze. You guys all take care. Look forward to seeing you. And again, thanks for your willingness to be a part of this group. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye, you all.